A different kind of isekai story. No grand magic, no flashy battles, no harem of beautiful girls. Just the quiet journey of a man who wished for nothing more than peace. Our main character is Hiraku. In his previous life, he was an unfortunate man, betrayed, struck by illness, and gone at the age of 39. When his soul left his body, he met the god of another world, who granted him a single wish. But instead of power, or fame, or fortune, Hiraku only wished to be reborn in a healthy body, to live simply as a farmer, growing vegetables, raising fish, and enjoying peaceful days under the sun. Moved by that humble wish, God blessed him with a strong body and gave him a legendary artifact known as the all-purpose farming tool, a divine weapon that could become any tool he could imagine. Moments later, Hiraku opened his eyes and found himself lying in the middle of a vast forest. No pain, no weakness, only freedom, and the warmth of life flowing through him. Wearing simple clothes, he took his first step into his new life. He tried summoning the all-purpose tool. In an instant, a hoe appeared in his hand. He started digging and soon realized, no matter how long he worked, he didn't get tired. The earth was soft and rich, perfect for farming, but a forest is never without danger. Before nightfall, Hiraku decided to find shelter. After exploring for a while, he chose a giant tree as his base. He cleared the area, cut some wood, and built himself a small hut. When night came, he had no fire, so he slept inside the hollow trunk. Under the glow of 2 moons, the forest felt calm and strangely beautiful. The next morning, Hiraku continued his work. He dug for water, his first source of life. Hours passed, and hunger finally hit. Just then, a giant rabbit came charging at him. By reflex, Hiraku swung his hoe and struck it down in a single blow. And so, he had his first grilled meal in another world. It wasn't exactly delicious, but for a man who once lay dying, having food at all was enough. After that, Hiraku grew more skilled. He crafted bowls, cups, even a makeshift toilet to make his daily life a little easier. As his small garden began to form, another problem appeared. He had no seeds to plant, but then a miracle happened. Overnight, the soil he had tilled came alive. Plants and fruits of all kinds grew on their own. Maybe it was the power of the land, or the divine tool itself. Either way, Hiraku was overjoyed. He built fences to keep beasts away, expanded his territory, and from time to time, wild boars and rabbits would show up, becoming precious meals for the days ahead. Then one day, 2 giant wolves appeared before his hut. Instead of fighting, Hiraku calmly offered them some leftover meat. He soon noticed the female wolf was pregnant. Seeing her about to give birth, he let both rest inside his hut, lit a warm fire, and watched over them through the night. By morning, 4 tiny wolf pups were born, small, fluffy, and full of life. Overjoyed, Hiraku named the wolf parents Kuro and Yuki and welcomed them as his very first companions in this new world. With the wolves by his side, Hiraku could finally farm in peace. His fields grew lush and green. His little hut felt warmer than ever, and the cheerful barks of the wolf family echoed through the forest. Hiraku smiled, looked up at the twin moons above, and whispered to himself, "Maybe this time, I really get to live the peaceful life I've always dreamed of." Up in the heavens, even God grew curious about how Hiraku was doing in his new world. In his previous life, the poor man had spent most of his years confined to a sickbed. Surely adapting so quickly wasn't possible. But when God looked down, he was stunned. The once wild forest where Hiraku lived had turned into a thriving paradise. He scratched his head and murmured to himself, "Did I perhaps bless him a little too much?" Then God noticed something alarming. The peaceful forest was actually crawling with dangerous monsters. He wanted to intervene, but divine law forbade him from interfering with reincarnated souls. All he could do was watch, worried and helpless, as Hiraku continued his carefree life below. Unaware of any danger, Hiraku spent his days happily. He even sculpted statues of the harvest deity and of God himself, showing gratitude for the blessings he'd received. Before long, he discovered something unbelievable. Whenever he imagined a plant, it would actually start to grow. To test it, he pictured bean sprouts in his mind, and sure enough, tiny sprouts began to push through the soil. With his fields growing more fertile by the day, Hiraku could finally prepare meals combining meat and vegetables. They were simple, just boiled food without any seasoning, but to him, they were perfect. To change things up, he decided to plant fruit trees for dessert. Between farming and joking around with his wolves, life was peaceful and full of laughter. Kuro, the male wolf, became his loyal companion and helped him explore the forest without getting lost. One day, the two discovered a fresh spring hidden deep among the trees. Since it was far from his base, Hiraku thought about building a water channel, but before that, he decided to set up a small restroom nearby, marking the place as his territory in his own unique way. As the days passed, Hiraku's experience grew, and his farmland expanded. His fields were now full of thriving crops. But one problem still remained. Without salt or spices, every meal tasted the same. Seasons came and went, and soon winter drew near. Seeing snow on the distant mountains, Hiraku realized the cold season was coming fast. He began storing food and sewing himself a coat made from rabbit fur. Unfortunately, the raw hide smelled awful and the coat was so stiff it was barely wearable. Then luck found him once again. One afternoon, a strange spider appeared, politely greeting him before spinning silk with astonishing precision. In mere moments, it had woven a beautiful handkerchief. To thank Hiraku for providing food and shelter, the spider used its silk to rework his rabbit furs into a soft, warm, and stylish winter coat. Soon, it even created blankets, curtains, and bedding, turning Hiraku's hut into a warm and cozy home. Thanks to his careful preparations, Hiraku safely survived the harsh winter. Still, during the long, silent nights, he couldn't help but feel lonely. He often looked up at the two moons above and thought, if only there were someone beside me, just to share this warmth. When spring returned, the snow melted and the forest came alive again. The wolf pups had grown big and strong, often wandering off into the woods. Hiraku worried they had left for good until they returned, each with a mate in tow, covered in scratches from their battles of love. He laughed to himself. Seems that whether you're human or wolf, finding a partner isn't easy. Even Jabo, the spider, now had a whole swarm of tiny spiderlings. Surrounded by families, Hiraku couldn't help but feel a little envious of their companionship. One day, Jabo suddenly alerted him to danger. Following Kuro's lead, Hiraku rushed through the woods and found a small lost girl surrounded by wolves. She looked frightened, fragile, and out of place. He quickly ordered his pack to stand down and approached her carefully. Taking off his coat, he offered it to her. But before he could react, the girl leapt forward and bit him on the neck. After drinking just a few drops of blood, her small frame transformed into that of a beautiful woman dressed in elegant clothing. But before Hiraku could speak, the wolves pounced again, knocking her down and forcing her back into her smaller, childlike form. It turned out she was a vampire, one who needed blood to maintain her adult appearance. She had been severely weakened after trying to challenge Hiraku's wolf pack earlier. Feeling sorry for her, Hiraku let her drink a little more of his blood, helping her recover. Then he brought her back to his home to rest. When she saw his flourishing farm, her eyes widened in amazement. Tomatoes, potatoes, plants she had never seen before. Curious, Hiraku picked a ripe tomato and handed it to her. One bite was enough to make her eyes sparkle with delight. They spent the day walking through the fields together, harvesting crops and laughing like old friends. That evening, the girl began writing down notes about the plants she'd seen. Through their conversation, Hiraku learned her name was Rue, a vampire researcher studying plants and herbs. She explained that a greedy noble had tried to steal her research, forcing her to flee. By chance, or fate, she had ended up lost in Hiraku's forest. Moved by her story, Hiraku did something unexpected. He knelt down and softly said, "Then, stay here. Stay with me. Forever." In vampire culture, the word forever carries a deep meaning. It's a proposal. Rue blushed, hesitated, then quietly nodded her agreement. From that moment, Hiraku's quiet life changed forever. Every morning, he woke up with new energy. Every day felt warmer with Rue by his side. She lit up their home with her magic, taught him how to boil seawater into salt, and greeted him each morning with a smile sweeter than sunshine. Hiraku realized then that his once peaceful world had gained something even more precious: the gentle warmth of love. While Hiraku and Rue were harvesting in the garden, Jabo's alarm suddenly rang out. Both of them rushed outside and saw a winged girl being chased by Hiraku's pack of wolves. The scene looked oddly familiar, and Hiraku could only sigh. Still, with his kind nature, he quickly ordered the wolves to stop so they wouldn't frighten the girl any further. Once free, the winged girl immediately used healing magic to treat her wounds. But the moment she saw Rue, her eyes widened in shock. The two clearly knew each other. Rue crossed her arms while the girl pointed straight at her like she'd just caught a thief. The wolves took that as a cue to jump back in, and chaos erupted again. Hiraku had to step in, calming everyone down and inviting the two inside for a proper talk. As soon as they sat down, Rue introduced Hiraku as her husband, leaving both him and the angel completely stunned. Sure, Rue often called him that, but it was the first time she had ever said it so confidently in front of someone else. Hiraku blushed, embarrassed, but secretly pleased. The winged girl introduced herself as Tia, a member of the angel tribe, which sounded noble, but in this world, angels were actually known for being hot-headed and stubborn. Tia revealed that she had come to capture Rue, who had apparently caused a huge commotion in a nearby village. Rue quickly protested that it was all a misunderstanding. She only disciplined a certain noble who had gone too far and somehow ended up blowing up the whole marketplace. Tia began listing Rue's crimes: a fiery temper, an obsession with weird explosive magic, and a tendency to make everything go boom. Hearing all that, Rue could only sigh and admit she might have gone overboard. Surprised to see Rue so calm and gentle, Tia teased her. "Wow, just a few days apart and you've already changed so much. Guess marriage really works." Wonders Rue laughed and said that after being defeated so thoroughly by Hiraku's wolves, she no longer had any pride left to hold on to. Tia nodded in sympathy. Two former troublemakers who'd both learned humility the hard way. Then Rue suddenly grinned and said, "Hey Tia, why don't you stay here with us?" The more, the merrier. Tia hesitated, but couldn't refuse Rue's enthusiasm. Rue excitedly took her on a tour around the fields, from vegetable plots to fruit orchards, proudly showing every inch of their land. Then she handed Tia a hoe and told her to try farming herself. For a celestial being used to floating in the sky, this was a big step down, but Tia reluctantly agreed. Hiraku handed her a large cabbage, heavier than she expected. He washed the leaves, sprinkled a bit of salt, and offered her their local specialty, salted raw cabbage. Seeing Rue eat it so happily, Tia took a bite and was instantly surprised by how good it was. The three of them worked until sunset, filling baskets with vegetables, and that evening, Tia fell in love with the sweet, tangy flavor of freshly picked strawberries. Seeing her so delighted, Rue leaned closer and whispered playfully, "Then stay here with us, Tia. Don't go anywhere." Tia didn't really catch the deeper meaning, but Hiraku did. He just smiled awkwardly and said nothing. From that day forward, the three began living together, working, harvesting, and sharing laughter. The once quiet cottage now overflowed with warmth and joy. Before long, Kuro and Yuki's wolf pups grew up, bringing even more life to the garden. With so many new residents and limited space, Hiraku built another small hut near the fruit trees. It looked a bit like a stable, but it did the job well enough. Meanwhile, Jabo's first batch of spiderlings matured and left to find their own mates, leaving behind a new generation to keep her company. One day, Tia asked for permission to leave for a few days. Hiraku worried she might not come back, but Rue reassured him, saying, "Don't worry, she'll return soon." True enough, a few days later, Tia came back, and she wasn't alone. She brought along 7 beautiful pink-haired girls from the elf tribe. The eldest introduced herself as Leah, and the rest were her relatives. They explained that their homeland in the north had been destroyed by war more than 200 years ago. The elves had scattered across the continent, and these 7 had been wandering from forest to forest ever since. Homeless and isolated, they had no way to rebuild their population. Hearing their story, and after Rue and Tia pleaded on their behalf, Hiraku couldn't refuse and welcomed them to stay. Because the elves wanted to live together, Hiraku decided to build a large 2-story house for them. He began digging foundations and cutting timber, only to discover that the elves were more construction than he was. In just 10 days, they completed a sturdy, beautiful house that left Hiraku speechless. Looking at his own tiny hut, he could only laugh. then quietly promised himself to learn from them. Once everyone settled in, life became livelier than ever. With extra hands, farming and harvesting became easier. During one meal, Hiraku was surprised to see the elves eating cooked food like normal people, not raw plants as he'd imagined. Leah chuckled and said she wanted to try metalworking next to make tools for the group. Together, they built a furnace, poured in charcoal and iron sand, and smelted their first batch of metal. The result was a shiny, perfect iron pan, their first crafted tool. Watching the elves work so confidently filled Hiraku with joy. When he mentioned that he had milled some wheat, they eagerly baked their first loaves of bread. The smell filled the air and everyone smiled, enjoying the simple happiness of sharing food. Then a thought struck Hiraku. Wait, who actually owns this forest? Rue paused for a moment, then answered, Technically, this land belongs to the Demon Lord. Hiraku froze, realizing he had been living illegally on the most dangerous territory in the world. Seeing his worried face, Rue gently held his hand and said, If everything here was built by your own hands, then it all belongs to you. No one can take that away, my dear. Her words eased his heart completely. That night, as Hiraku looked at the moonlit village he'd built, he smiled to himself and thought, Tomorrow will be another busy day, but I'm happy to live it. While working in the garden, one of Hiraku's dogs caught a giant bee and proudly brought it back. The poor creature trembled before the pack, but with Hiraku's gentle reassurance, it soon calmed down. Seeing this, Hiraku got a new idea, raising bees for honey. He quickly built a small wooden hut as their hive, and within a few days, the colony had settled in. The queen bee was impressively large, while the worker bees looked almost identical to those from his old world. To give the bees enough flowers to gather nectar, Hiraku planted a colorful new garden. Around the same time, he began constructing a proper water supply. The inverted pyramid-shaped reservoir was completed, but he still needed a way to transport the water. Stone was hard to find in the forest, and wooden pipes would leak too easily. So Hiraku used his universal farming tool to compress soil into rock-hard material and carve sturdy channels capable of bringing water from the river without losing a drop. After finishing the reservoir, he used the leftover soil to form sections of pipe. With the help of the elf girls carrying and connecting each part, the waterway was completed in no time. Irrigation became effortless, and to everyone's surprise, several fish followed the current into their channels. Hiraku first thought they were harmless, but one massive fish suddenly leapt out and attacked, nearly knocking him over. That scare soon turned into dinner, as the fish became the star of a delicious barbecue feast. Rue and Tia hesitated at first, but one bite was all it took. They couldn't stop praising how good it was. With the water system now stable, Hiraku began thinking about rice. As soon as the thought crossed his mind, young rice sprouts appeared on the soil. He decided to start his first paddy field. After plowing the earth and letting water flow in from the reservoir, 2 small rice fields took shape. For the girls, it was their first time playing in the mud, and they found it surprisingly fun. Hiraku brought out the seedlings and taught everyone how to plant them. With eager learners and plenty of hands, both fields were finished by midday. Pest control was handled by Jabo's spiderlings, while the universal farming tool sped up growth until the fields were heavy with golden stalks. When harvest time came, the elves joined in, and in just a blink, the entire crop was reaped. The rice was spread out to dry, removing any moisture. Relying on what he remembered from TV shows in his past life, Hiraku recreated a traditional rice threshing machine like the ones he'd seen in museums. He demonstrated grains clean. Once the white rice was ready, he carefully cooked it over a wood stove, controlling the flame to make sure it came out soft and fragrant. To make it easier to eat while working, Hiraku shaped the rice into small balls with grilled fish inside. The simple dish turned out to be a hit. The full tray disappeared within minutes. Watching everyone enjoy it so much, Hiraku couldn't help but smile in satisfaction. The next day, they continued expanding the rice fields. After finishing work, everyone cleaned off the mud on their own. Watching them, Hiraku suddenly thought of building an indoor hot bath with a small dressing area. Bathing in the river during winter would be freezing, he reasoned, so a warm bath made much more sense. He fired clay to make bricks, built a furnace, and connected the water from the main system to supply both hot and cold. As construction neared completion, another issue came to mind: wastewater. Tia suggested using a species of slime that consumes waste and purifies water before releasing it back into the stream. Hiraku asked half-jokingly if it was the same kind of slime that pretended to be weak before eating adventurers. Tia laughed, told him to stop watching nonsense, and went to catch one. The dogs and Jabo refused to touch it, but the slime worked perfectly. Thanks to that, Hiraku created a slime-based filtration tank right in the drainage line. While gathering firewood for the bath, Hiraku stumbled upon some wild mushrooms. Normally, he avoided eating anything unknown in this world, fearing it might be poisonous, but this time he decided to experiment, using his farming tool to grow them safely on logs. He got so absorbed that night fell before he noticed he hadn't collected enough wood. Returning home, he decided to teach the girls how to use the bath by demonstrating it himself. The warm water surrounded his body, and for the first time in both lives, he felt completely at peace. After years spent sick and bedridden, this small luxury felt like heaven. Just as he was about to get out and make room for the others, all the girls jumped in together. Hiraku turned bright red, while they cheerfully insisted that separate baths were boring. He wanted to object, but there was no winning that argument. Embarrassed, yet oddly grateful, Hiraku gave up and accepted his fate. Later that same day, Kuro returned with 5 more elf girls, all related to the previous group. Each had lost her home in the same great war centuries ago, and now they sought shelter. Hiraku, as always, couldn't say no and agreed to let them stay. Leah suggested they take this chance to renovate the house, making it big enough for everyone. And just like that, Hiraku's household grew to 14 members. Leah cheerfully announced that they would live together in harmony and help build a happy, bustling life. Hiraku could only laugh awkwardly, realizing his quiet farm was quickly turning into a small village. Meanwhile, Kuro watched his growing family and remembered his past. Before meeting Hiraku, he had lived wildly in the forest, fighting other males and believing himself unbeatable. That was until he met Yuki, the female who easily defeated him in one strike. From then on, the two stayed together through countless dangers, even facing the king of bears at one point. To escape the chaos, Kuro led Yuki deep into the heart of the forest, a place so dangerous even the bears avoided it. There, they encountered Hiraku, the only human brave enough to live peacefully in such a place. When Hiraku summoned them, Kuro could sense the immense power radiating from his farming tool and thought his end had come. But instead of harm, Hiraku offered them food and a home. What Hiraku didn't know was that Kuro and Yuki were not ordinary dogs, but hell wolves, creatures feared by all living things. Even so, Kuro chose to keep their true identity secret. He was simply grateful. Because of Hiraku, he and Yuki now had a safe haven, a family, and a life filled with warmth that they never thought possible. Under the elegant design of the elf girls and Hiraku's hard work digging, cutting, and building, a beautiful 2-story house quickly took shape. Inside, it was far larger and more spacious than Leah's place, with 3 bedrooms for Hiraku and his 2 wives, a big dining hall large enough for the entire family, and a neatly arranged, fully equipped kitchen. Beneath the floor was a massive underground food cellar, which Hiraku was especially proud of. Out in front, besides the statues of the god of farming and the creator, he even carved a pair of Kuro and Yuki statues, the wolf couple, to guard the entrance. After eating meat and fish for so long, Hiraku decided to try something new: curry. He brought Rue and Tia to his spice garden filled with dill, turmeric, chili, onion, pepper, and garlic. Since some of these plants couldn't grow in snowy areas, he had built this separate greenhouse. With the universal farming tool, even the hardest spices grew easily. As he harvested each herb, he explained its name and use. When he picked up a bunch of dill, Kuro and Yuki, his 2 hell wolves, sniffed it once and bolted away in fear. Rue and Tia immediately noted down a new discovery: plants that can repel hell wolves. With the ingredients gathered, Hiraku and Leah returned to the kitchen. The meat was seared until golden, then set aside, while the leftover fat in the pan was used to bring out the aroma of the dill. He sautéed chopped onion, garlic, and ginger, then added diced potatoes. As the curry began to smell heavenly, he sprinkled in salt and spices, added the meat, soybeans, and water, then let it simmer slowly. While waiting for the curry to finish, Hiraku kneaded dough for Leah to roll out and baked the bread the rustic way, right on the back of a frying pan. By the time the last piece of bread turned golden, the curry was ready. Everyone used the bread to scoop it up, savoring the rich, spicy flavor. Even those who hesitated at first ended up asking for seconds, except the two wolves, who fled again the moment Rue brought the curry close. With winter approaching, Hiraku began preparing supplies. He gave Jabo a basket of potatoes for hibernation and asked it to weave blankets and bedding. Leah's group repaired small tools, while Rue and Tia used magic to roast meat for long-term storage. The wolves' food was also stocked up. Hiraku focused on preserving vegetables, packing them into boxes, covering them with cloth, and letting the snow act as natural refrigeration. Watching Rue's effortless magic, he couldn't help feeling a bit inferior, thinking all he could do was farm and cook. But Rue reassured him. He was the one who made it possible for everyone to live safely in such a dangerous forest. Her words lifted his spirits completely. Soon, snow began to blanket the rooftops, marking the start of another winter. Checking his storage boxes buried under snow, Hiraku felt relieved knowing his plan worked. Staying indoors for too long could get boring, so he introduced a series of games: Go, chess, shogi, ludo, and mahjong. Rue and Tia faced off in Go. Tia quickly gained the upper hand, prompting Rue to angrily flip the board, only for Tia to restore it instantly with magic. On another side, Leah played quietly while Kuro acted as her strategist, and somehow the wolves even started playing shogi against each other. When Rue challenged Kuro for revenge, she was utterly defeated. Hiraku stepped in to play mahjong for her, but Kuro crushed him too with a perfect 13 orphan's hand. After that, they all agreed to switch to bowling, a much safer choice for everyone's pride. The next day, they made spicy Thai hot pot with their stored vegetables, enjoying the warmth and laughter together. Winter passed peacefully, full of fun and comfort. As time flowed, the snow melted and spring arrived, the perfect season for a new round of farming. But just as everyone began preparing the fields, Jabo's alarm sounded once more. The group rushed outside, expecting another lost traveler. But this time, it wasn't a person. A massive red dragon was soaring straight toward their village. As the massive red dragon dove from the sky, Rue and Tia shifted into a defensive stance. Its flames roared across the treetops, spreading a wildfire through the forest. Sensing danger, Leah's group scrambled to contain the blaze while Rue and Tia launched counterattacks. Their spells, however, bounced off a powerful barrier wrapped around the beast, leaving them momentarily helpless. In that desperate moment, even without a plan, Hiraku resolved to protect everyone. A sudden light burst from his hand and formed a mysterious spear. He hurled it with everything he had before the dragon could breathe again. The impact shattered the barrier, pierced the dragon's wing, then looped back and transformed into a potato right in his palm. On the second throw, the spear finished the job, and the dragon crashed into the forest below. Staring at the colossal corpse, Hiraku wondered if anything like this had happened before. Rue explained that dragons had attacked humans in the past, but never one this large, and there was no sign of anyone controlling it. It was likely a freak coincidence. Hiraku, meanwhile, had a more practical question. Could dragon be eaten? As always, the golden boy of the kitchen got to work. He grilled the legs with spices, wrapped lean cuts and leaves to steam, and simmered the tail with vegetables. In minutes, a feast covered the table. Despite its armored look, the meat was tender and melted on the tongue. Everyone ate to their heart's content and still felt full the next morning. Elsewhere in the demon realm, the 4 heavenly kings discussed the unknown warrior who felled such a terrifying beast. Anyone strong enough to defeat a dragon was no ordinary foe, and concern began to spread. In another place within Dore's cavern, a man and an ice dragon also whispered about the mysterious slayer of the fire dragon. The next morning, Hiraku led the crew to harvest grapes for winemaking. Barrels filled quickly, and under his direction the girls climbed in and stomped. They were shy at first, and Tia even slipped face first, creating an awkwardly funny scene. To keep a rhythm, Leah suggested an old elf stomping chant. Soon the vineyard sounded like a festival, with Rue pulling Hiraku into the chorus. By the end, they had 16 barrels of juice ready to ferment. and Hiraku suspected even that would not be enough for this lively bunch. In the heavens, the creator smiled to see Hiraku safe, but the goddess of agriculture, his daughter, was furious. She could not forgive him for casting an innocent man into a deadly forest. She was even more irritated that Hiraku had sculpted her likeness as an old man. Unable to vent her anger at Hiraku, she unloaded it on her father. The creator could only laugh bitterly and accept his fate. Later, Jabo's alarm echoed again. Hiraku grabbed his spear, expecting another monster, but found a small girl cornered by the wolves. The pattern was familiar, and he already had a guess. It was Flora, Rue's cousin from the vampire clan, who had come to rescue Rue from Tia's supposed dark influence, only to discover the two living like close sisters. Flora eyed Hiraku and judged him far too frail to protect anyone. Rue immediately listed her husband's achievements, from slaying the red dragon to commanding hell wolves. Flora was stunned, bowed in apology for underestimating him, and only then realized the dogs were actual hell wolves, leaving Hiraku just as surprised. To welcome his new sister-in-law, Hiraku prepared a lavish meal, and after a few bites, Flora was hooked. She did not fully grasp his explanations, but like Rue, she took notes anyway. After a few days, she left to pack and move in for good. A month later, she returned with a retinue of maids and even gifted a few dairy cows for milk and butter. Seeing every household with helpers, Tia realized she was the only angel around. Not wanting to be left out, she asked for a short trip. When she came back, she brought a small team of angels and 3 lizard folk, plus a flock of hens as a welcome gift. They could not breathe fire, but their egg-laying skills were second to none. From then on, the maids kept the home spotless, and with Hiraku's coaching, their cooking skills skyrocketed. The 3 angels took charge of forest patrols, while the lizard folk boosted construction speed across the village. Leah soon returned with more wandering elves seeking refuge. When Hiraku asked why they were all women, Leah said there were no men left in that area, and insisted that increasing the population would solve everything, a topic Hiraku wisely chose not to pursue. A few days later, Hiraku gathered everyone for an important announcement. With the population booming, it was time to name the village. People suggested using his name, but he felt it did not fit. Flora proposed the Deadwood Forest, which was promptly rejected for sounding ominous. After a string of gloomy options, Jabo signaled Hiraku to open the door. Outside stood the giant tree that had watched over them since the beginning, and inspiration struck. He named the village Taidu, the Great Tree. That night, they celebrated the founding of Taidu with their first batch of village wine. Voices rose together as everyone hailed Hiraku as the village chief. He hesitated, but Rue affirmed that no one was more deserving. Accepting the role, Hiraku vowed to make their home safer and stronger. Under warm lights and clinking cups, he felt a quiet happiness, because at last, this place was truly home. This morning, a messenger from the Demon King unexpectedly arrived at Taidu, asking to see the village chief. It was Hiraku's first official duty in his new role, so he kept his guard up. After confirming identities, the envoy offered a goodwill gift, a vial of special water, then brought up the question of land ownership. Remembering that Rue once said this territory lay within the Demon King's domain, Hiraku proactively proposed an annual tax. 10% of the village's farm yield collected before winter, calculated only on crops harvested from the fields. The envoy was stunned by how favorable the offer was, and immediately wrote it into a formal agreement before taking his leave. The village then dissected the deal. 10% was unbelievably good, and in return the Demon King would naturally provide protection. Tia was impressed. Elsewhere, the levy could be 50 to 60%. The maids praised the once-per-year collection before winter, since it would make it hard for the other side to gauge total production. Rue, meanwhile, adored the gifted water, a panacea of sorts, calling it a clever move to keep relations warm. Back in the demon realm, the 4 heavenly kings discussed their next steps. Their plan had been to pacify or recruit Hiraku. Instead, his cooperative stance made them even more cautious, worried he was hiding deeper intentions. B-Day reported what the envoy had seen around Hiraku: a vampire princess, a doomsday-class angel, a pack of hell wolves, a large number of elves, and other fighting forces, with the envoy escorted by the infamous trio of angelic assassins. He had thought the mission would be a one-way trip. Then they opened Hiraku's return gift, glossy red apples with flawless flavor, wrapped in a cloth woven from demon Spider Queen silk, a thread on par with a former Demon King. Picking a fight with Tai-Du would be tantamount to suicide. Not long after, the dragon folk sent representatives to pay respects. Du-Ra-Im arrived with his attendants, bringing lavish swords as gifts and introducing their territory at a castle south of the mountains. Neighbors, more or less. Hiraku invited them in for refreshments, but the dragon's true form could not fit through the door. The blonde aide told him to shrink down, revealing the dignified, middle-aged uncle within. Hiraku served fine wine, pastries, and fresh fruit. One bite, and Du-Ra-Im was spellbound, wanting to stay forever, but the butler insisted he return to guard their lands. Even so, from that day on, the dragon uncle kept dropping by, trading gold and jewels for wine and stumbling home blissfully drunk on his butler's back. After 2 waves of VIPs, Hiraku realized greeting guests at the gate was awkward, while inviting them straight into his home was even trickier. The village agreed to build a proper guest house. Hiraku suggested something modest, but Leah objected. Travelers from afar usually came in groups. To be safe, they built a lodge that could host about 30 people, a reception hall on the first floor, and overnight rooms on the second. The alarm network was upgraded too, with Jaybo's new warning bell, while patrols and escort duties remained with the angelic assassin trio. Their reception protocol tightened as well. Initially, the plan had Hiraku, his wife, and Tia as the welcoming party, but the maids and lizard folk argued that enemies might blend in with visitors. The new plan kept Hiraku, Rue, and Tia as hosts, backed quietly by an elf and lizard folk security detail. Flora volunteered to greet guests too, but Hiraku assigned her to indoor reception and night watch, an easy task for a vampire who did not need sleep. Soon came their third delegation, Beastkin from Howl Ridge Village to the south, led by Gort, seeking friendly ties. Sensing hidden companions in the trees, Rue signaled to handle the first exchange herself. She confirmed the head count with Gort, then ordered the wolves to bring out the 2 ambushers skulking outside. Gort blanched and apologized. Rue reminded him that wandering unannounced in another village's territory could end badly. From then on, the Beastkin behaved. Because the visitors arrived empty-handed, the reception was scaled back. Doors were latched, the meal was simple, and alcohol was off the table. Hiraku felt bad and negotiated 2 cups per person. The household agreed, albeit reluctantly. While they ate, he learned more about Howl Ridge, an old settlement living on hunting and mining, bartering across the river with humans. A string of recent disruptions had broken their trade, so they were looking for new partners. The 2 scouts outside had been a contingency to warn their village if things went south. Once no hostility was found, both sides discussed trade. Howl Ridge did not use currency. Their main assets were silverware and ores, which they wanted to exchange for food. Gort added a request. The forest roads were harsh, so they hoped Tai-Du could handle delivery, since Hiraku's people knew the terrain better. Tai-Du had no artisan yet who could craft fine tableware, and transporting goods by wolf-drawn carts was feasible, so Hiraku agreed. Hands were shaken and a pact was signed. Gort apologized for arriving without gifts. Hiraku replied that sincerity mattered more than items. On delivery day, Hiraku wanted to go personally, but the village flatly refused. By a draw, Tia represented the chief, accompanied by several burly lizard folk. The journey would have taken 10 days on foot, but for 1 cask of wine, Du-Ra-Im agreed to airlift them. Only Tai-Du would ship goods by dragon. Howl Ridge was still worrying whether their new partner would show up when a dragon silhouette swept across the sky. Tia closed the deal smoothly, handling a few minor incidents along the way. The Beastkin also asked if Tai-Du could accept around 20 migrants, all women. With Tai-Du short on labor, Hiraku was open to it, but for gender balance he added a condition. Send 3 young men along as well. A few days later, the migrants arrived. The girls were shy, as expected in a new home. The 3 young men appeared too, so young they looked more like schoolboys than adults. The villagers traded weary smiles. Sharing the burden of population growth, it seemed, would be a long-running subplot. The new girls settled into Tai-Du fast. At first, they fainted at the sight of pet monsters. Demons, spiders, and hell wolves will do that. But a few run-ins later, they were laughing with the kids and joining village chores. Hiraku noticed the Beastkin girls could use magic like everyone else, and even Kuro's pups, Jabo's brood, and the giant bees could breathe little puffs of fire for fun. He alone still could not cast a thing. Sena told him not to stress. The younger ones were in the same boat. Learn together, step by step. Hiraku nodded, half convinced he would still lose to toddlers at magic. Magic aside, the man shines at everything else. A scout from the assassin trio rushed in with news. 2 gigantic bear serpents were fighting near the forest edge, where others worried about rampage damage. Hiraku wondered whether bear and snake would taste good. He went to check, and with a single featherlight slash, both beasts dropped. Back in the village, he boiled hare, cleaned the carcasses, and tried a spread of dishes. Bear stewed in wine turned out gamey, but crispy fried snake rescued the meal. Something still felt missing, so he ran to Flora's lab for mild disinfectants to keep pests at bay and asked how her miso project was going. Flora winced. A string of failed fermentations and a few accidental explosions meant she had to repair her own shed. Hiraku rolled up his sleeves anyway. First, a quick win for morale. Crack eggs into a bowl with salt and vinegar, whisk, drizzle in oil, and there it was. Homemade mayonnaise, perfect with fried snake or anything KFC adjacent. Then he helped Flora restart miso from scratch. Boil soybeans, mash, salt, form cakes, press into barrels, and wait 5 to 6 months for fermentation. Long wait, but worth it. Before the paste could rest, Rue arrived with new guests. Dwarves. Their leader, Donoban, had heard the rumors, a village whose wine you never forget, and begged a taste. The household barred the casks without gifts. Donoban admitted he had no money, but offered a master brewer's skill. With Tai Du's superb crops, he promised spirits to rival their wine. Say no more. The girls forgot the empty hands, and let him prove it. After a meticulous process, his first batch of corn liquor exceeded expectations. Delicious, but potent. The dwarves were invited to stay and develop more varieties. A welcome feast followed for the Beastkin newcomers and the dwarven brewers. Du-Ra-Im swung by too, head over heels for village wine as always. Before he could do something embarrassing, his butler tied him up and hauled him home like usual. Over a quiet drink, Hiraku teased Donoban about romance now that the village finally had some adult men. Donoban's type, he said, ran tall, dark, and very bearded. Spicy tastes indeed. The next morning, Hiraku shouldered his hoe and headed to the fields, only for another dragon to scream down from the sky. He readied his spear for dragon meat, part 2, but Du-Ra-Im dove in from nowhere and headbutted the intruder. A second white dragon charged straight for Hiraku. He threw once, the dragon dodged. He threw again, and an attendant leapt between them, begging him to stop. The newcomers, she explained, were the Dragon Lord's wife and daughter. Mystery solved. Du-Ra-Im had been sneaking out nightly with armfuls of jewels and returning at dawn, so his family tailed him, suspecting a mistress. Instead, they found a tipsy dragon uncle trading treasure for wine and staggering home on his butler's back. Given her husband's personality, the dragon lady decided infidelity was unlikely and let it go. After witnessing Hiraku's prowess, she understood why Du-Ra-Im wanted ties with Tai Du. She was also grateful. An old friend, the demon spider, had deflected Hiraku's spear a heartbeat earlier, or she would have been skewered. To strengthen relations, the dragon family asked to leave their daughter, Goody, in the village. Hiraku agreed without hesitation. Goody was eager and friendly, but her power was overwhelming. Chickens, cows, even Kuro's crew kept a respectful distance, and any household chore she touched became rubble. Tia suggested leaning into dragon strengths, not just might, but razor-sharp intellect. So Hiraku reassigned Goody to negotiations and trade. Word of Tai Du's growing might continue to rattle the demon realm. B-Day floated the idea of sending spies. Rosin warned exposure meant death. In the end, B-Day turned to someone he trusted most, his daughter, Florem. She agreed to scout the village's military strength personally. On arrival, the first face to greet her was Goody, the famed violent dragon princess, cheerfully promoting farm produce. That alone broke Florem's expectations. She slipped around the outskirts and watched. Tai Du hosted every race imaginable, beastkin, dwarves, and more. That was already dicey. Then she spotted a vampire princess and a doomsday-class angel. Game over. When the Demon Spider Legion and the Hell Wolves marched past, she decided Tai-Du could claim second place in the world's power rankings, and no one would dare argue for first. At first, she assumed the Dragon Princess commanded this army. Then she learned there was someone above Goody, a village chief. How strong did the leader have to be? Hiraku, meanwhile, was just passing by the fields when he noticed a human girl curled up behind a fence. He offered help. She cold-shouldered him and ran. Later, when Florem found out that the polite farmer she had snubbed was the village chief himself, her soul nearly left her body. From that day on, every time she saw Hiraku, she clammed up, bowed low, and didn't dare raise her voice. While managing the village, Hiraku suddenly noticed that the slimes Tia had brought back had multiplied into a whole rainbow-colored colony. The leader of the bunch even dared to drink an entire barrel of wine, leaving everyone speechless. Losing such a precious batch, the girls were furious and wanted to hold a trial. Flo stepped in, reminding them that slimes didn't exactly have brains. Punishment wouldn't change a thing. And so, disaster number 82 was declared forgiven. From that day on, the slimes joined every party, happily eating and drinking with everyone like true villagers. As autumn came, the air turned cool and pleasant. Hiraku worked in the field so hard that he forgot to eat until his stomach growled. On a chilly day like this, a hot pot was the best idea. Then inspiration struck. Why not make it seafood hot pot? The girls, of course, had no idea what seafood even was, so Hiraku explained about lobsters, crabs, and other treasures from the sea. Du told Flora to look them up, while Tia remembered fighting a crab demon with a shell hard as steel and wondered how humans could ever eat such a thing. Flo then mentioned a large southern harbor where merchants traded all sorts of sea goods. Hearing that, everyone lit up with excitement and decided to go find some seafood right away. 3 days later, Goody and Flo returned with a merchant named Michael, the seafood tycoon of the coastal town SAS. He brought plenty of fish and squid for tasting, though he admitted he had thrown away all the crabs and lobsters, thinking no one would eat them. Michael came with 3 goals: to thank them for their order, to propose a long-term partnership, and to become Tai-Du's official trade representative. With his nationwide network, he promised to raise the value of their farm produce to new heights. The deal sounded great for both sides, and with fresh seafood on the table, everyone agreed without hesitation. Before leaving, Michael asked to try Tai-Du's famous wine, but Do-Ra-Im firmly refused. Michael could only smile awkwardly and back off. Hiraku thought he was a clever businessman, though thankfully his own negotiating team was even sharper. In truth, Michael's calm demeanor was pure bluff. Just 3 days earlier, when his men reported unannounced visitors requesting to meet him, he nearly declined. But a gut feeling told him turning them away would bring trouble. When he finally went out, he realized he'd made the smartest decision of his life, because the visitors were Florem, daughter of Count B-Day, and the Dragon Princess Goody. The trade talks took place surrounded by dragons, giant spiders, hell wolves, and literal angels of destruction. Escaping that forest alive was already a blessing. Still, thanks to that deal, Tai-Du enjoyed a legendary Thai hot pot that could rival any 5-star restaurant. A few days later, Jabo's alarm bell rang again. This time, a white dragon swooped down and spewed flames across the village. Hiraku struck back. His first throw missed, but the second didn't. Just before impact, Do-Ra-Im rushed in and stopped him, introducing the dragon as his sister, Hakurin, who was simply causing trouble out of boredom. The real reason? Do-Ra-Im had once joked about marrying Goody to Hiraku. Having been single for over 900 years, Hakurin didn't take that well. Still, setting the forest on fire couldn't go unpunished. She had to clean up her mess before being allowed to join the feast. That night's feast turned into chaos, in the best way. Someone suggested a mahjong match, and Hiraku, trying to liven things up, proposed a penalty rule. Losers would remove a piece of clothing. The dragons bailed instantly, but Hiraku joined to fill the table. Predictably, his brilliant idea backfired. He ended up losing everything but a single loincloth, while the whole village laughed until they cried. Meanwhile, back in the Demon Lord's castle, news of Hakurin's appearance in Tai-Du sent shockwaves through the council. With forces like dragons, angels, vampires, and hell wolves, Tai-Du could easily wipe out the demon realm if war ever broke out. The four heavenly kings began drafting countermeasures, while the demon lord himself just sighed. His daughter had been acting strange lately, and he had no idea why. Back in Taidu, Hakurin stayed for a while. To instill some discipline, Hiraku assigned her to dig and fill pits, but within a day she was already complaining non-stop. He switched her to teaching children, but that went no better. Around the same time, the Leaf Tribe, forest dwellers, visited the village, apologizing because Hiraku's pets had accidentally raided their territory. Taking responsibility, Hiraku traded farm goods for their minerals to make amends, and gently asked them to wear proper clothes next time they came. From then on, they frequently returned to trade and transport goods, expanding Taidu's growing network. Seeing this prosperity, Hiraku began planning to expand the forest further. That night, back at the Demon Lord's castle, a group of noble ladies insisted that Taidu must be holding Florem captive. They tearfully begged for a rescue mission. The princess approved without hesitation. Another storm was on its way to Taidu village. In the Demon Kingdom, Flo was busy recording the village's trade logs when her father, Count Bison, came rushing in. He brought shocking news. The princess was planning to launch an attack on Taidu village. Flo froze. She immediately guessed the reason. Those three brainless noble ladies must have talked her into it. But when she heard the supposed reason for the attack, to rescue Florem from the dangerous village, she was completely speechless. Flo couldn't help but sigh. Was the princess tired of living, or what? She had already written a warning letter. If anyone dared touch Taidu, their fate would be sealed. Bison could only shake his head. He'd tried to stop them, but no one believed Flo's words. As they say, it's not the strong enemies you fear. It's the foolish allies. The Demon Lord understood the situation, but being a hopelessly doting father, he let his daughter do whatever she wanted. If Flo tried to intervene now, people would think she'd betrayed the demon race. So, she decided to go with the flow. Let them attack first, and then show them what the Great Tree Village was truly capable of. She called for help from the Leaf Tribe. Just 3 of those girls alone were enough to wipe out the princess's so-called elite forces. As expected, the noble army was completely crushed and quickly retreated in terror. The 3 foolish noble ladies were captured, and Flo declared that from now on they would serve as apprentice maids in Taidu to atone for their stupidity. Along with them came Princess Yuri, Flo's childhood best friend from the Demon Kingdom. To avoid suspicion, Flo introduced Yuri as an old acquaintance and told Hiraku to simply treat her as invisible. Later, she led them all on a tour around the village. Yuri was amazed. Green fields, steam-powered machines, even grass growing underwater. Things like that didn't exist in the Demon Kingdom. While Leah was peeling apples, she handed some over for the guests to try. Yet the 3 noble ladies still couldn't drop their arrogance. As they ate, they whispered, "If we conquer this place, we'll all become rich." Flo's eyebrow twitched. She warned them coldly, "Say one more stupid thing, and not even the gods could save you." That night, the 3 tried to sneak away, only to be dragged back by the Hellwolves. After a few lessons, they finally learned obedience. Flo soon realized they weren't fit for manual labor, so she put them on clerical work instead. At last, her lonely accounting office had some much-needed assistance. During her stay, Yuri began to understand the truth. She regretted her reckless actions. She'd nearly caused chaos in such a peaceful place. In truth, Yuri had only done it out of concern for Flo, her dearest friend, since childhood. When Flo suddenly left without a word, Yuri thought she had been mistreated and led an army to save her. Truly, a best friend like that could start a war just out of love and worry. Thanks to the delicious food and warm atmosphere, the 3 noble girls quickly fell in love with Taidu. At first, they wanted to run away, but now, even if someone chased them out, they wouldn't leave. Yuri joined in the farm work with the beast folk, enjoying the most peaceful days she'd had in years. But eventually, it was time for her to return to her royal duties in the Demon Kingdom. Before she left, Senna packed some pastries and gifts for her. The 3 noble ladies begged to stay to learn more, though everyone knew it was really because they were obsessed with the village's food. Yuri asked Flo to visit her whenever she had time, then said her goodbyes and departed. After the princess returned, the Demon Lord noticed a dramatic change in his daughter. She had become calmer, more serious, and even started caring about politics and diplomacy. Bison was proud. His princess had finally matured. But the demon lord was horrified. In his mind, only one thing could make a girl change this much: a man. Whoever dared to steal his daughter's heart must have a death wish. While the demon lord was busy raging like a jealous father-in-law-to-be, life in Taidu remained peaceful. The villagers began their pre-winter harvest, and this year's yield was enormous. The storage cellar could barely hold it all. Hakuren requested a portion for her relatives. Gudi shared some with her father, Do-Ra-Im, and Hiraku gladly agreed. The rest he sent with Roddy to trade with Michael. In return, Michael asked for a favor: to get rid of a sea monster terrorizing his coast. Roddy handled it swiftly and came back with a load of fresh seafood, perfect for another grand hot pot. While delivering supplies up north, Hakuren encountered a group of mountain elves. Life in the highlands had become too difficult, and they asked to settle in Taidu. Naturally, Hiraku welcomed them without hesitation and promised to build more homes. The mountain elves were skilled hunters, but their traps didn't work well on the strange beasts of the forest. Around the same time, Hiraku wanted to try making pottery, but lacked clay. The elves volunteered to find some, and this time, they didn't disappoint. They brought back a fine batch of clay, allowing Hiraku to craft the village's first ceramic jars. Everyone quickly joined in, shaping cups, plates, and household items. During one exploration, the girls discovered a hidden cave in the northern mountains. They asked permission to investigate, and Hiraku agreed, sending a few lizard men and dogs to protect them. Meanwhile, the men's bathhouse was finally complete. Hiraku relaxed in the hot water after days of hard work, unaware that 3 girls outside were secretly plotting to become his second wives. Of course, Flo caught them red-handed and warned them so sternly that they never dared try again. Not long after, the scouting team returned with urgent news. A bloodthirsty serpent was living inside that cave. Its meat was said to be precious and good for certain romantic benefits, so the elves eagerly volunteered to slay it. Time passed, and the third winter arrived. Just as the cold set in, Hiraku received worrying news. Du, his gentle wife, had suddenly fallen ill. He hurried to her side. Du reassured him it was just a bit of dizziness and nausea, nothing serious. But when Reina asked if she'd been craving sour food lately, Du admitted she had. Dizziness, nausea, and cravings, the classic signs everyone knows. Hiraku froze for a moment, then smiled softly. There was no doubt about it. Du was pregnant. And with that, Taidu village welcomed its happiest news yet. A new life was about to begin. When news spread that Ruel was pregnant with the village chief Hiraku's child, the entire Great Tree Village was shaken like a storm had hit. Everyone talked about it, from the elders to the little ones. But within a few days, the excitement settled down, and life slowly returned to normal. Ruel stayed indoors, carefully looked after by everyone. Hiraku barely left her side, constantly hovering around, asking every few minutes if she felt tired, dizzy, or hungry. With the population growing fast, breakfast had to be divided into 3 shifts. The first group included Hiraku, Tia, and Florem, who was still obsessively experimenting with her miso recipe. Half a year had passed, and she still hadn't succeeded. Her tired face said it all. She had clearly stayed up all night again. The second shift belonged to the maids, while the last one was for the late risers. And as always, Hakuren didn't even make it to breakfast, still snoring loudly at 10 in the morning, the village's very own goddess of sleep. One morning, the 3 angel sentries arrived with a report. A few monster rabbits had recklessly invaded the forest the night before and ended up as breakfast for the Hellwolves. Despite their calm, serious appearance, the angels were surprisingly lazy, relying on the maids for meals and the lizard men for milk. Still, when it came to guarding the village, no one could match them. After breakfast, Hiraku headed out to the fields as usual. Tiny black insects had gathered on the leaves, but one light spray from his multi-purpose farming tool washed them all away. With everyone's help, the great tree forest expanded little by little each day. To save time, Hiraku usually ate lunch with the workers in the fields. When the girls first arrived, some didn't even understand what lunch was, and a few worried that eating too much would deplete the food supply. Now, skipping lunch was unthinkable. Without it, no one had the energy to work until sunset. In the afternoon, Hiraku continued his unfinished tasks. Instead of focusing only on crops, he began planting colorful flower gardens that made the entire village glow with life. At the same time, he crafted new furniture, chairs, tables, and shelves according to everyone's needs. To stay in shape, the villagers decided to spend an hour or two each day on combat training. They said it was for defense, but in truth, it was just to keep their figures after so many hearty meals. Hiraku joined once, but after only a few swings of the sword, he was already out of breath. Then he remembered the divine farming spear he carried could outmatch any weapon. There was really no need for extra training. By the time he returned home, dinner was already waiting. Even if the food wasn't exactly to his liking, Hiraku still ate everything under the piercing gazes of the maids standing nearby. Afterward, Florem handed him a letter from Princess Yuri, who thanked him for the apples and requested a new dress, personally tailored by Jabao, the village's giant spider seamstress. Later, Hiraku soaked in the men's hot spring he had built himself. He sighed in satisfaction, realizing that constructing a separate bath for men had been one of his smartest decisions. Bathing with the women only made him nervous. This, finally, was true peace. But nighttime brought a different kind of tension. The women of the village took turns guarding the underground quarters around the clock, worried that someone, or something, might attack their beloved chief while he slept. Though it was inconvenient, Hiraku said nothing. He knew it all came from care and affection. Meanwhile, the dwarves continued brewing their legendary liquor. Hiraku once thought they must be hopeless drunkards, but in truth, they never drank while working. They believed that staying sober was sacred. Only then could they recreate the perfect flavor passed down by their ancestors. Their discipline left Hiraku deeply impressed. One day, the village stirred when a mysterious man appeared in the courtyard, standing in an odd pose that even the angel assassins in Jabao seemed wary of. To everyone's surprise, it was the vampire progenitor, Ruel's grandfather, the ancient founder of their race. Having heard of his granddaughter's pregnancy, he came personally to check on her. Seeing Florem tending to Ruel, he finally relaxed. Though he looked young, the progenitor was over 4,000 years old. He revealed his secret to eternal youth. Vampires sometimes erased unnecessary memories to free up space for the ones that truly mattered. At first he planned to leave quietly, but when his eyes fell on the statue of the divine god in the village square, he stopped in his tracks and knelt in deep reverence. Long ago, at the moment of his birth, he had once met the true god, but had erased that memory to preserve his sanity. Now seeing the statue, he felt as though he were meeting that divine presence once again. Because the statue was a sacred symbol of the village, Hiraku couldn't give it away. Instead, he sculpted a new one and offered it to the progenitor himself. Deeply moved, the ancient vampire tried to offer payment, but Hiraku refused, saying that faith was not something to be bought or sold. Before leaving, the elder blessed Ruel for a safe delivery, thanked his precious grandson-in-law, and cheerfully carried the statue home. After he left, Ruel revealed just how powerful her grandfather truly was. Every major cathedral in the world was under his command, and even the high priest people worshipped were once his students. When the progenitor returned to his domain, he placed the statue in the grandest hall of the cathedral. The priests were awestruck by its craftsmanship, calling it the work of a divine sculptor. But the elder only smiled and said that its creator was no sculptor, just a humble man. He then issued a decree to all his descendants to forever honor and remember village chief Hiraku, the man who created this masterpiece of faith. As a token of gratitude, he sent a priceless grand piano to the village. Hiraku placed it proudly in the center of his hall. The three noble idiots from the demon kingdom were eager to try it, but too scared to damage such a treasure. So Hiraku asked Michael to buy another piano for practice. Side by side, the two instruments couldn't be more different. The progenitor's piano radiated a holy brilliance, yet that only inspired the villagers further. Those who could play taught those who couldn't, and before long, music filled every corner of the Great Tree Village. As the sound of the piano echoed softly through the night, Hiraku leaned back with a tired smile. Music truly was a gift from heaven, but if they kept practicing every night like this, how was he ever supposed to sleep? Spring arrives, sunlight warms the fields, and the Great Tree Village bursts back to life. Everyone heads out with Hiraku, tending crops like always. Work breeds skill, and day by day, Hiraku's farmer instincts get sharper. Today, Ruel personally brings lunch to the fields. Seeing her husband pushing himself, she gently reminds him to rest on time. Hiraku smiles, promises to be careful, then asks if all the walking is okay. Ruel laughs it off, saying light exercise will make delivery easier. Hiraku looks at her growing belly, a mix of nerves and joy welling up. He wonders what it feels like to carry a tiny life inside. That evening, the villagers gather around Ruel, curious about the pregnancy. She grins and says it only feels as heavy as 2 cabbages. She thanks everyone for the constant care and kindness. There is one torment, though. As a true lover of good drink, Ruel has to watch others enjoy alcohol while she abstains. To be fair, the entire village decides to go dry with her. Easier said than done. For many here, alcohol is practically a lifestyle. Quitting is no piece of cake. Hiraku suggests a compromise. Stop drinking until the baby is born and let the barrels age. When it is time to celebrate, the wine will be even better. The dwarves, seeing their stock untouched, start to panic. Did they offend someone? Is their brewing off? Only after Hiraku explains do they relax, relieved they are not getting booted from the village. Time flies. Jabao, the spider seamstress, is already knitting adorable baby clothes. Villagers go searching for lucky flowers to gift Ruel. Hiraku checks on her daily, keeping an eye on every little change. The angel trio bring a rare snow blossom that cools and soothes. Mountain Girl offers a restorative herb for afterbirth. Goody delivers a mana gem from her father to help recovery. The maids whip up silky puddings so Ruel can eat something gentle and sweet before the big day. One afternoon at sunset, Ruel feels a strange tightening in her belly. The village erupts. It might be time. Supplies are gathered, feet pound the floor, and Hiraku, nerves shot, ends up waiting beneath the familiar great tree, praying for mother and child. The night crawls by. Then, at last, a baby's cry rings through the village. Hiraku steps in, surrounded by congratulations. Ruel smiles and asks if he wants to hold their child. Hands trembling, he lifts the baby. The room seems brighter. Joy crashes over him. He is clumsy, a brand new father, but he swears he will be the best dad he can be. After a sickly previous life, all he wants now is a healthy, happy son. Ruel squeezes his hand. They will raise this child together. A week later, Ruel is still in confinement, and Hiraku is back in the fields. By her wish, the boy is named Anfet. Half vampire by blood, but looking fully human, he is impossibly cute. The village dotes on him as the great tree's first young master. Hiraku thinks back to when it was just him and a shack in the woods. Now there is family, friends, a thriving community. From outsider to village chief to father, he wants to do something meaningful in return, so he introduces Taiju coins. Everyone who has contributed gets a few. They can be used to trade goods, request help, or settle favors. In short, the village finally has money. Before, Hiraku handled most distribution himself, but the population has exploded. Currency lets people trade freely and recognize the value of labor. To avoid chaos, he rolls it out as a test within the village. Each person receives 3 coins. Large groups like Jabao's Spiders or Kuro's Pack receive 30. Even minting the coins leaves Hiraku drenched in sweat. Activity explodes. Some buy wine, others pick up household tools. Some trade for gifts or weapons from Daroam. A few refuse to spend theirs, polishing the coins as keepsakes. Hiraku is happy to see the buzz, even if it leaves him gasping for breath. Not every transaction is straightforward. One kid tries to spend 3 coins to buy a baby. The village howls with laughter while Hiraku facepalms. In the end, the deal becomes this. The village chief must play gopher for the children for 1 day. The baby's welcoming feast arrives. Spirits are high, and of course, good liquor is a must. The dwarves, reading the room perfectly, roll in a premium barrel and invite the couple to tap it. Ruel is breastfeeding, so she cannot drink. She just smiles while everyone else gets tipsy. And judging by the giggles and wobbling feet, the vintage is divine. The dwarves propose splitting the barrel and aging it again. When Anfet comes of age, they will uncork it together and celebrate properly. News of Taiju's little heir spreads fast. Partners send gifts. Even the 4 demon generals realize their earlier suspicions were way off. Many want closer ties now, though the Demon King remains wary, an incurable daughter fanatic who refuses to risk his princess around Hiraku. Time rolls on. Taiju thrives. Immigrants keep arriving. Estimates say the next wave could top 100 people. With numbers soaring, the village agrees to build a second taiju, a sister settlement ready to welcome everyone who dreams of a new life under the great tree. Today, we follow a different kind of isekai story. No grand magic, no flashy battles, no harem of beautiful girls, just the quiet journey of a man who wished for nothing more than peace. Our main character is Hiraku. In his previous life, he was an unfortunate man, betrayed, struck by illness, and gone at the age of 39. When his soul left his body, he met the god of another world, who granted him a single wish. But instead of power, or fame, or fortune, Hiraku only wished to be reborn in a healthy body, to live simply as a farmer, growing vegetables, raising fish, and enjoying peaceful days under the sun. Moved by that humble wish, God blessed him with a strong body and gave him a legendary artifact known as the all-purpose farming tool, a divine weapon that could become any tool he could imagine. Moments later, Hiraku opened his eyes and found himself lying in the middle of a vast forest. No pain, no weakness, only freedom, and the warmth of life flowing through him. Wearing simple clothes, he took his first step into his new life. He tried summoning the all-purpose tool. In an instant, a hoe appeared in his hand. He started